In all my years of watching people and studying their ways, one thing has become crystal clear. True intelligence isn't about how many facts you've stored in your mind. It's about how you navigate life, how you treat others, and how you rise from your mistakes. But here's the hard truth. There are specific signs, 7 to be exact, that scream when someone is not just missing the mark, but is deeply trapped in their own lack of wisdom. Now let me tell you why this matters. Recognizing these signs isn't about pointing fingers or feeling superior. It's about understanding, self-reflection, and growth. Think of it like walking past a mirror. Sometimes you don't like what you see, but if you're wise, you'll fix it. The same goes for spotting foolishness, not just in others, but within ourselves. Because if you can't see the problem, you'll keep walking the same broken path. Here's the kicker. Many people don't even know they're stuck in their own cycle of foolishness. It's like being in a fog, lost, wandering, and unaware of the way out. But that's where we come in. By understanding these 7 signs, we don't just avoid falling into the same traps. We also become a guiding light for those who are still fumbling in the dark. So let's take this journey together. Each sign carries a lesson, a story, and a chance to hold a mirror up to your own soul. Because wisdom isn't a destination, it's a road, and that road starts with awareness. Are you ready to see what most people don't even notice? Let's dive in. Number 1. The fortress that traps the foolish. A closed mind is like a fortress built to keep everything out: knowledge, growth, and even wisdom. Its walls are made of fear, pride, and stubbornness, and those who live within these walls convince themselves they are safe. But safety in this case is an illusion, because while the world evolves, they stay frozen in time, refusing to adapt or learn. Imagine someone who always says, "This is how I've always done it, and it works just fine." It's like a sailor refusing to use a compass in stormy seas because they've never needed one before. The storm doesn't care about their stubbornness, and neither does life. This kind of rigidity not only halts their growth, but also affects everyone around them. Take Mark, for instance. He was a department manager who clung to the old ways like a shipwrecked sailor clutching driftwood. When a younger employee suggested modern project management software, Mark rejected it outright, claiming, "We've been fine for 10 years." But here's the irony. His team wasn't fine. Competitors outpaced them, performance plummeted, and morale sank. Instead of reevaluating his choices, Mark pointed fingers at his team, the market, and even bad luck. But the problem was clear: Mark's fortress of a closed mind. Marcus Aurelius, a great Stoic thinker, once said, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." In other words, obstacles should be seen as opportunities to grow, not reasons to cling to old habits. Wisdom doesn't mean knowing everything. It means being willing to admit when you don't. Maybe you're wondering, what if changing my perspective makes me look weak? It doesn't. In fact, admitting you were wrong shows strength, not weakness. Think of it like a tree bending in the wind. It doesn't break because it adapts. Stubbornness, on the other hand, snaps like a brittle branch. If you find this trait in yourself, ask, what am I really afraid of losing by opening my mind? The answer is usually pride. But pride is a small price to pay for wisdom. Only when you tear down the walls of that fortress can you truly see the horizon and move forward. Number 2. The blame game that keeps you stuck. Blaming others is like playing a game you can never win. Foolish people are experts at pointing fingers, turning every mistake into someone else's fault. But here's the truth they refuse to face. Blame is a shield they use to protect their ego, and that shield quickly turns into a cage. They get stuck in a loop of excuses, unable to grow because they won't confront the truth. Think about Lisa, an event organizer I once worked with. She was in charge of a major conference, but when it failed due to poor attendance, Lisa didn't hesitate to blame the marketing team. "They didn't promote it well enough," she said, as if that absolved her. But when the dust settled, the truth came out. Lisa hadn't sent the event details on time, delaying the entire campaign. Even then, she kept pointing fingers, unwilling to own her part in the failure. The result? Her colleagues lost trust in her, and she eventually stepped down. Marcus Aurelius, the Stoic emperor, once wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." Responsibility may feel heavy at times, but it's the only path to real growth. Blame, on the other hand, is like building your house on sand. It feels solid for a moment, but it collapses under pressure. Maybe you're thinking, but what if it really wasn't my fault? That's fair. There are times when things are out of your control. But the question isn't about blame, it's about reflection. Ask yourself, did I truly do everything I could? Could I have approached this differently? Responsibility isn't about taking the fall for things you didn't do, it's about finding the lessons in what happened. Foolish people stay blind to these lessons because they're too busy pointing fingers. Imagine life as a ship, and you're the captain. When the seas get rough, blaming the storm won't fix your course. A wise captain adjusts the sails, learns from the waves, and becomes stronger with every storm. Foolish captains? They blame the wind, the crew, or even the stars for their misfortunes, and they never leave the harbor again. If you're caught in the habit of blaming others, ask yourself this: what am I avoiding by not accepting responsibility? Often it's fear. Fear of looking weak, fear of admitting you were wrong. But here's the paradox. Taking responsibility doesn't make you weak. It makes you powerful. It shows you have the courage to face reality and the strength to grow from it. The Stoics teach us that life isn't about avoiding failure. It's about mastering it. Every mistake you own becomes a stepping stone toward wisdom. Blame, on the other hand, keeps you trapped in the same place, running in circles with no way out. Responsibility, though uncomfortable at first, is your way forward. It's your chance to learn, to improve, and to build trust with the people around you. In the end, blame won't change the outcome of your failures. But responsibility? That will change you. And when you embrace it, you'll realize that growth doesn't come from avoiding the truth. It comes from facing it head-on. Number 3. The weight of ego that cripples growth. Have you ever met someone who constantly tries to prove they're the smartest person in the room? Their need to dominate is less about intelligence and more about insecurity dressed up as arrogance. This is the third mark of a foolish person. Arrogance doesn't just mask their doubts. It builds walls so high they can't see beyond their own ego. And here's the truth. Those walls block growth, wisdom, and connection. Think of Michael, a manager at a big corporation. In meetings, he monopolized every conversation, interrupted others, and even ridiculed his team's ideas. When a major project failed, Michael didn't reflect. He blamed his team, claiming they didn't grasp his brilliant vision. But the real issue wasn't their lack of understanding. It was his refusal to listen. His arrogance derailed the project, and when his boss pressed him for answers, he couldn't find one. Why? Because arrogance had blinded him to the lessons failure was trying to teach. Now, let's flip the script. True humility isn't about lowering yourself. It's about lifting others and embracing the fact that you don't and can't know everything. Marcus Aurelius once said, "If anyone can prove and show to me that I think or act wrongly, I will gladly change it, for I seek the truth, which never harmed anyone." Humility is this simple yet powerful openness to correction and new perspectives. Maybe you're thinking, but if I show humility, won't people see me as weak? Quite the opposite. Humility is strength. It's the courage to admit you don't have all the answers while still seeking them. Picture it like this. A tree that bends in the wind survives the storm, while one that refuses to sway breaks under its own rigidity. Arrogance is that brittle tree, while humility is the one that grows stronger with each storm. Ask yourself, am I trying to grow, or am I just trying to prove myself? Wisdom doesn't live in making others feel small. It thrives in collaboration and learning. The truly wise understand this. They quiet their ego, listen more than they speak, and allow humility to guide their actions. Humility isn't just a virtue. It's a tool for greatness. Let it clear the noise of arrogance and open the door to wisdom. That's where real intelligence begins. Number 4. The hollow life without empathy. A lack of empathy is like walking through life blindfolded. You might see your own steps clearly, but you're completely unaware of the paths others are struggling to tread. It's one of the clearest signs of ignorance, a refusal, or perhaps an inability, to step into someone else's shoes, to feel what they feel, or to even care about what they're going through. Without empathy, people isolate themselves. They hurt others without realizing it, and they rob themselves of the depth that meaningful relationships bring. Let me tell you about Paul, a former colleague of mine. Paul was quick to criticize but slow to understand. When project delays occurred, he never asked why. He only complained about the inconvenience to him. One day, a coworker named Susan missed a deadline because her son was gravely ill. Instead of showing compassion, Paul publicly criticized her in front of the entire team. He didn't care about Susan's pain or struggles. All he cared about was the result he didn't get. But life has a way of humbling us, doesn't it? A year later, Paul found himself in a similar position, taking care of his ailing mother. Suddenly, he understood the weight Susan had carried that day, and he realized how deeply his words had cut. That's the thing about a lack of empathy. It doesn't just hurt others, it isolates you. It blinds you to the opportunities for connection, learning, and growth that relationships can offer. Marcus Aurelius said, "Whenever you are about to find fault with someone, ask yourself the following question. What fault of mine most nearly resembles the one I am about to criticize?" Empathy requires this kind of reflection. It asks us to pause and look beyond ourselves. It's not a weakness. It's the strength to listen without judgment and the courage to care even when it's inconvenient. You might be asking yourself, but won't being empathetic make me vulnerable? Won't it slow me down? The answer is no. Empathy doesn't make you weak. It makes you wise. It's the bridge between humanity and wisdom, connecting you to a world of understanding that arrogance and isolation could never reveal. Imagine life as a tapestry. Each thread represents a different person's experience. Without empathy, you see only your thread. With it, you see the beauty of the entire design. So how do you cultivate empathy? Start by listening. Truly listening. Don't interrupt. Don't judge. Just let someone else's story sink in. Picture yourself in their situation and ask, how would I feel if this were me? It's a small practice, but it's transformative. In the end, empathy enriches you just as much as it helps others. It gives you the grace to navigate life's complexities and the wisdom to see beyond your own needs. Without it, you're trapped in a narrow, self-centered existence. But with it, you open the door to deeper connections, greater understanding, and a life far richer in meaning. Empathy isn't just a tool, it's the foundation of a truly wise and fulfilling life. Number 5. The chains of comfort that hold you back. Fear of change is like clutching onto a crumbling bridge, terrified to let go and step onto the solid ground waiting ahead. It feels safe, familiar, but it's an illusion. The comfort zone may seem like a sanctuary, but in truth, it's a prison that locks you away from growth, discovery, and life itself. Change, though unsettling, is the river of life. It flows, bends, and transforms constantly. The wise adapt and learn to swim, while the foolish cling to the shoreline, hoping the current will stop. Take Michael, a man who spent his entire life in the same neighborhood. He knew every face and every corner, and he took pride in his familiarity. When his children encouraged him to move closer to them for better opportunities, he resisted. "Why leave? I know everyone here," he said. But slowly, his world began to shift. Friends moved away, shops closed, and the neighborhood he once knew so well became unrecognizable. Finally, he gave in and moved closer to his family. What he discovered wasn't just comfort, but a new life, filled with opportunities and relationships he had never imagined. His resistance to change had only delayed the happiness waiting for him. As Marcus Aurelius once said, "Loss is nothing but change, and change is nature's delight." Change is not your enemy, it's your ally in growth. Perhaps you're wondering, what if I fail? What if the new path is harder? But here's a better question. What if it's better than I ever dreamed? Life doesn't pause for anyone. If you resist the flow, you don't stop time. You simply get left behind. To embrace change is to embrace growth. The wise know that every step into the unknown is a step toward becoming something greater. Don't fear the river. Learn to flow with it. Number 6. The wake-up call we all need. Before you rush to ask yourself, "Am I stupid?" take a moment to breathe. The truth is, at some point, every one of us has shown signs of foolishness. Maybe it was arrogance that kept us from listening, fear that made us cling to old ways, or the habit of talking more than we listened. But here's the twist. These so-called stupid traits aren't permanent. They're lessons in disguise, nudging us toward growth. Stoic philosophy reminds us that wisdom isn't about always being right. It's about being brave enough to admit when we're wrong and open enough to learn from it. Marcus Aurelius said, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." In other words, the very traits that hold you back can become the path forward, if you're willing to face them. Picture a plant growing in rocky soil. It struggles at first, but its roots push through the cracks, drawing strength from the obstacles. That's what self-awareness can do for you. Each stupid behavior you notice isn't a reason to despair. It's an opportunity to evolve. Maybe you've been too quick to judge, too afraid of change, or too focused on being right. The question isn't, "Why did I act this way?" It's, "What can I do better now?" You might wonder, "What if I can't change?" The answer is simple. You can. Growth isn't for the perfect, it's for the bold. It starts with small shifts, stepping out of your comfort zone, truly listening to others, owning your mistakes, and embracing change. Wisdom isn't a destination, it's a journey. And every misstep along the way is just a reminder that you're human, constantly learning and growing. So, let's walk this road together, one step closer to becoming wiser. Number 7. The trap of resentment. Another clear sign of foolishness is holding on to resentment. It's like gripping a burning coal, hoping it hurts someone else, but all it does is burn you. Resentment chains you to the past, blinds you to joy, and poisons your relationships. While you replay old hurts, life moves on without you. Imagine someone clinging to a grudge, replaying an argument in their mind over and over, waiting for an apology that may never come. What they don't realize is that resentment doesn't harm the other person. It harms them. As the Stoic philosopher Seneca wisely said, "He who is angry at things which he cannot change commits folly." Ask yourself, what is holding on to resentment giving me? Is it peace? Is it growth? Likely not. Forgiveness isn't about letting them off the hook. It's about setting yourself free. It's about lightening your load so you can move forward. So here's your challenge. Let go of just one grudge today. Free yourself from the weight of resentment and step into a lighter, wiser future. And if this resonates with you, don't stop here. Subscribe to this channel, like the video, and share it with someone who needs this message. Let's grow together on this journey to wisdom.